Alright guys, welcome back to episode number 28. This is the after show for Rogues, Tricks of the Trade. We are here with Daltin for Something Wicked, and FieryDemise, I totally blanked for a second there, from the Horsemen. Alright, let's do some questions and stuff. Alright. Let's do it. Was there any in chat you thought were really good? Because I have two that were submitted here on the emails that I can bring up.
Something I wanted to say, but we never really had a
Sure.
point to mention it.
Go for it.
It's more of a PvP thing about how strong rogue utility actually is or was before.
Oh, okay.
There's a video on YouTube of Wreckful doing PvP during Cataclysm, and he was wearing warglaives, and he would be victorious.
I saw that. I think I did, yeah.
Well, he's Wreckful, though.
Right, but I mean, he's doing like 100 damage at a time to these other PvPers, but he's completely locking them down. That speaks to the volume of how strong rogues can be if they're mastered. It does not matter what weapon you have; it's pure control, and it's beautiful, is what it is.
Okay.
And arguably a touch overpowered.
Arguably a touch overpowered, just a little bit.
A little bit.
Okay.
Do you think that there's something about rogues that makes you able to do that as a rogue that you can't do as another class?
Subterfuge and Shadow Dance. Actually, a really fun discussion on the official U.S. forums about what would happen if you moved Shadow Dance baseline for all specs. Give all the specs sort of the control capabilities from base that come from Shadow Dance. And there's a lot, like, Shadow Dance is a really fun cooldown because you can use it for burst. In PvP, you can use it for burst. You can use it for cheap-shotting the entire team, garroting something. It's a very versatile, very powerful cooldown. And the Subterfuge is overpowered and should go away.
I see. Well, we got some questions from chat here for you guys. Blackbee says, as a new assassination rogue, I was upset when I heard earlier about the recent nerfs. Can you explain what happened recently, please?
So when I said recent nerfs, I meant the nerf happened on 924. It's not exactly recent. It was at the very beginning of the tier. The biggest problem with the nerf is it undermined spec balance. Early combat was nerfed by about 8% coming into this tier because Blizzard nerfed the T15 4-piece, so combat would actually stop using it. And because the cooldown trinket Assurance of Consequence was brokenly overpowered. So until you got Assurance of Consequence, most people were Assassination, and Assassination was pretty powerful. But once you got Assurance of Consequence, combat caught up to Assassination. But in those first couple weeks, there were a ton of good combat parses, or a ton of really kind of silly assassination parses, and Blizzard nerfed Assassination by about 4%. And since then, Assassination's been arguably the weakest of the three specs for progression on a raw DPS perspective.
Yeah, our church was going crazy a little bit there, Fiery. Chat room was wondering, what the heck is that? And I turned off the music for a little bit just to not...
Yeah, what is the bells in the background? What are the bells in the background that we're hearing?
Sorry. That's the church across the street from me. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
It's not a big deal. It's just...
Because I'm like, it can't be bells ringing on the hour because we've heard it a couple of times.
No, every 15 minutes.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. Alright, we got more questions. Anything else from chat? I have one. You talked about how the Enhancement Shaman episode was the first one. The pilot was not a real episode, and we talked about healing the whole time. We're both going to do a Ret and Enhancement episodes for the show proper like we do in this format.
We will.
So, yeah. But, yeah, next week is DK, so we'll get to
the Ret episode is just going to be my face mirrored on
three cameras!
3 cameras. 3 different views of me,
I'm sure the YouTube comments would just love that.
No, we've got some great Rets lined up for that show, so we're pretty excited about it. But it's not going to happen quite yet, so y'all just have to hold on to your excitement until then.
Yep. So, and this is a blanket statement from chat because they were suggesting DKs and they're suggesting talking about rogues. Not every awesome rogue or DK or class person is going to want to be on the show with a webcam and talk about this stuff for 2.5 hours. So it comes down, we have to find personalities and people like that. So we have to find people that are comfortable in this environment. Not everyone is. I mean, people that are comfortable talking but don't want to be on camera, we allow as well. They use, you know, artwork or whatever. So there's a weird balance to that. You have to kind of, you know, run that line. You gotta find people that are good in both regards. So yeah. So I have a question here. Came in from Ferris on Korgath, US. How do you think cooldown reduction as a secondary stat will affect rogues' choices for specs come Warlords? For example, this expansion, combat was behind until it got the Assurance of Consequence. Obviously, there's a chance that all the classes will be changed a lot for Warlords, but assuming the class stays as is now, do you think cooldown reduction as a tertiary stat, I guess, would have a huge impact?
Yes.
Broken?
It's going to be really broken.
Okay, broken. Good.
Celeston suggested on Twitter that they're going to do per spec. They're going to do each spec's going to have a different amount of cooldown reduction per point, and that'll help. But it's going to be but it's still going to be pretty broken. I expect cooldown reduction is very powerful combat so long as Restless Blades exists, and I foresee problems.
What cooldown is Restless Blades on? Like, how long of a cooldown is it?
Restless Blades reduces the cooldown of your major DPS cooldowns by 2 seconds for every finisher you use, and and Adrenaline Rush and Shadow Blades, which are your 2 big cooldowns, increase the number of finishers you use by increasing energy regen and your CP gen. So you get more cooldown reduction creates this really fun little feedback loop that is broken. To put some numbers behind it, Assurance of Consequence, the LFR version, is more than twice as good as a Heroic Warforged Harem's Talisman, which is the next best trinket for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Harems is all be all for enhancement because of the totem cooldown, and all of our damage is in fire totem apparently. The fire elemental. Oh god. So yeah, no, I didn't know it was that good though. That's a really big, steep cliff right there.
It's 10 to 15%. It's a 10 to 15% damage increase for a combat rogue combat's arguably not something you should play at a high level unless you have Assurance of Consequence.
Chat's correcting you. It's every combo point used, so it would be 10 seconds if you use 5 combo
10 seconds.
points?
Yes.
Okay, not 5. It'd be 10 seconds. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, misspoke there.
No, that's fine.
I see. I mean, I know the equivalent trinket is really strong for me as well, but it seems like those cooldown reduction trinkets are either not something that's a really big deal for you, or something that's like integral to the way that your class plays. So it'll be interesting to see how they do with it as a stat on gear.
Yeah, because again, the tertiary stats are going to be hopefully fun flavor pieces, and we'll eventually find out if they only spawn on certain pieces. So people can't get...
cooldown reduction isn't a tertiary stat, though,
Yeah, it's secondary.
It's a secondary
it's a secondary
stat.
now. Oh, it's the green. Oh, you're okay.
It's one of the replacements for hidden expertise.
That's right, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Such an awful idea.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I'm really not sure about that idea.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I really wonder, though, if it's going to be as much as you can get off of one trinket, because you get 50% off of Assurance heroically.
Right,
but keep in mind that we're in the last tier of the expansion, and we're effectively in best in slot gear now. At least I'm assuming everyone's in almost as good gear as I am. In the last tier of Warlords in best in slot gear, I have a feeling that you can reach 50% cooldown reduction, or 50% cooldown regeneration, I guess is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you certainly won't do that in blues at the start of the expansion, but at the end of the expansion, I have a vision of, at least my class, everyone stacking as much CDR as they can get.
Interesting, yeah.
I don't know. It feels like a really problematic stat to me, in a way that Haste and Mastery are not. But I'm not a dev, so I guess I'll just play it on beta and see how it feels.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but really, I'm not. I can just kind of be worried about what it's going to look like at the end of the expansion. Because hearing rogues talk about that trinket, it just sounds really familiar to me, because it's and it's even more critical for you guys because it makes an entire spec function. So I can see us, as well as other classes, having issues with the way those CDR trinkets play out. I mean, that CDR stat plays out as a stat. So
yeah.
But we have another question here from chat on another topic. Blessings SX says, what do you guys think about the visuals of the class, as rogues don't really have any fancy animations or effects? No swirly ball. Do rogues need any of that? And I'll let you guys answer before say anything about it.
Yeah.
Something that really irks me is that we can't transmog swords into daggers and daggers into swords. And they said that it's because of combat animations. Except that when you are using Shadow Blades as combat, you are now using dagger animations. So...
Really?
I don't know.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
That really, really, really gets me. So...
I see.
Don't know. I really want to wear swords as daggers and daggers as swords. I would like that freedom. But Swirly Ball... It was its thing.
Hey, you guys, the community, I say you guys, but the Rogue community raged when they took it away. They just up in arms about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all for
They gave it to druids, and then they were like, druids have our swirly ball, kill all druids. So, yeah, yep. That's pretty funny. Kalis keeps asking about evasion. What's the big deal with evasion? Is it so good, or is it not that good? What's the deal?
It's kind of broken right now.
Oh, it's broken? Broken in a good way, bad way? What's going on?
100% avoidance for 15 seconds, 30 with prep is probably, or 20 seconds, or 10 seconds to 20 with prep is probably not something that should be in the game. On a Paragon's kill, our 3 rogues tanked the boss for 40 seconds post enrage.
Okay.
With evasion, prep, evasion, vanish, evasion, prep, evasion, boss dies. It's not something that should probably exist. And I feel bad saying that.
Nailed it.
It's a balance thing. It does not need to be there. There's no reason for it. It's, I don't know what they were thinking.
Well, I know what they were thinking. It's that it's on the flip side. Like I remember when taking like melee hits on Shah when our tanks were slow getting back. Like the RNG of hey evasion worked. Oh hey evasion didn't work. I got smacked after 2 seconds. That was not fun.
Yeah.
At the same time, 100% dodge doesn't make a lot of sense.
Dang, that doesn't seem good at all. That seems pretty... Coupled with that and Cloak of GG and Smoke Bomb, like, come on now. That's pretty ridiculous.
It is. It's...
Spazzo says, don't get rid of evasion. You guys want to raid or what?
I really like evasion, but it's the same
There's
thing
no
with
reason for it to last as long as it does.
Okay. So duration issue, whereas we have
Cloak.
With Cloak, you have a cooldown issue. Okay.
Or you could probably fix it by changing prep. So if Blizzard gets rid of prep, which they probably need to long run, then you have 10 seconds of evasion. It's probably a little more balanced than like prep evasion, then evasion prep evasion for 20 seconds of you can't kill me right now.
I see. Henky asked about the cameras. This is the after show. I usually don't switch cameras a ton because we're all just kind of rebuttaling and talking and looking at chat and whatever and looking at Twitter. So I don't rotate the cameras around as much when we're not doing the proper show itself. So we're just sitting here talking to you guys, answering questions. I had one more that came in. It's from Hero on Moonguard. Do you think Blizzard... Let me hold this up real quick. Do you think Blizzard will make other PvP specs viable in arenas? This is just a balance question, I guess. He's really not that good in his sub. I keep trying to learn it, but the more and more I try to learn it, I get worse. I would like to really see Mutilate or Combat make a comeback in, I guess he's in the 1700 plus bracket of arenas. Is that just because there's so much you can do with your utility and your stunning and your burst that sub is just so good in PvP and the other two are just not? I don't know how much you guys PvP at all, but...
Subterfuge.
It's Shadow Dance or Subterfuge are problems. Like there's a really fun discussion on the official forums about Shadow Dance for all specs. What would that look like? And the justification there is that we have this the Shadow Dance is a very powerful cooldown that allows a lot of utility or a lot of burst. It's got a lot of versatility in it, and because Subtlety has access to that, they have a much better control toolkit than the other two specs.
Yeah, I guess like I mean, I don't. That's like a problem with, I mean, certain classes, certain specs just don't have viability in PvP because of issues, but then that comes down to the fact that one usually reigns supreme. So, yeah, that's always the conundrum. I mean, hardcore PvE raiders say that PvP destroyed the game, and so the PvPers say the exact opposite, so... Yep, we will see. Checking chat real quick here. Another question just came in on the YouTube, though, on the Twitch. Let's see. Hurtfire asked, do you think it's worth rolling a rogue? Is there anything a rogue could do better than other classes? Are they more fun in some way? I think I'll open that up with that find me a top 10 world guild that doesn't use multiple rogues, or at least one, because they have always been good. Every expansion, they've really never been weak, and they only got better with all their new spells and smoke bomb and their avoidance and their soaking potential and their utility and their movement and their burst damage and overall. I mean, like, there's no guilds that don't use them. So
they're taking smoke bomb away from us, and
are they?
I think the damage reduction.
I don't think they've announced that per se. I hope they do. I hope they take that away.
They were taking away damage reduction cooldowns from DPS classes and giving them to healers.
Well, that's what this girl over here says all the time. That's what Anna is very.
That's the hope.
That's
the
hope.
I
hope they do that too.
Well, yeah. I mean, they haven't addressed it in detail in public. I know that Celestalon has said some things on his Twitter feed, like, yes, we know the cooldown arms race is a problem, and yes, we're planning on dealing with it. I think he's said that. He has 100% not given any specifics, but I'm pretty sure that he has said vaguely that they are going to address the raid CD arms race, and that makes me feel as though they are going to address it by removing some of them in some organized and fair fashion, which would be nice.
Okay.
Yep.
So I don't have any confirmation on that, but that's just my impression based on what the devs have said.
Gotcha. Mag is supporting you. A lot of damage reduction CDs are going away, yes, and he hopes so too. So, I mean, triage, healing, and stuff like that, I think is probably fine. But like everyone has so many cooldowns now that it is, you know, you put 2 and 3 together. You put 2 here. You put 1 there. You put 3 there. It's like playing Jenga with your raid cooldowns.
Okay, this one got asked a couple of times in chat, and hopefully I didn't miss us addressing this while I went to look for some information with regard to another question. But a couple people have asked, do you guys think that rogues need a full rework in Warlords? And what would you like to see as far as rogue changes? And we'll go with Dalton first on this one.
I don't know if we need a full Warlock revamp.
Yeah, that was kind of problematic.
The 3 specs just feel so similar to each other. I mean, my bars are set up. I have my builder is 2, my spender is 3, my sometimes builder is shift 2, my sometimes finisher is shift 3, my major cooldown nuke is 1, and that's it for all 3 specs. There's really nothing different that feels like I'm playing a different spec. One I track find weakness, and the other I pop everything. The other 2 I pop everything. So I want something to differentiate all the specs. I don't know what that would be. But
yeah.
So.
I don't think we need a full revamp either. I think that the big problem is just that the rogue specs, there's the hints of what could be a fun spec. Assassination could be a sort of Envenom-centric spec, kind of like it used to be in Kata. Subtlety can focus on... Subtlety has a nice kit with Find Weakness and Openers, and Combat has... Okay, Combat's got a... Combat's got a cool kit with the with cooldowns. The problem is Bandit's Guile doesn't really fit with that kit. I think a small... The big problem... Assassination is too easy. Subtlety's AoE is terrible. There are a lot of little things that need... There are a lot of little things that need change, but none of them necessarily need to... None of them are the kind of thing that you should not, like... You don't need a Warlock revamp. Good targeted changes are the way to go. Like, I've been sort of brainstorming them, and over on my blog I have a fun idea for Assassination, which actually is probably a terrible idea, but people go read it because I think it's a nifty. I think it's interesting, even if it's probably a terrible idea.
It's an interesting, terrible idea. Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, here's a question that I have for you, because you've said this about Sub having terrible AoE. I think you've said Sub has terrible AoE a couple of times. Do you think all of the specs need great AoE and great single target, or is it okay for one of the specs to have less good AoE, considering you have 3 of them?
I think it's okay if they have less good, but Subtlety's AoE is just so bad.
Okay.
It's the worst in the game.
Okay, so it's a matter of scale. It's okay for some of them. So you think it's okay to switch to Combat if you guys really want to cleave on a fight. You just don't want to have any spec with no AoE.
Give a nice example on you look at a fight like Thok, where I was playing. I think Subtlety is a great spec on Thok. You can be running pretty much top of the. You can run pretty much top of the meters, and then you go into after first kite phase will probably be 4th or 5th, and then bats come out and hey, now you're like 12th.
Well, I'm a Ret Paladin, so until the 4-piece thing, I knew how that felt. That's kind of how.
Hey, I'm an Enhancement Shaman. I felt like that until this tier.
Yeah, no, until this tier, me as well. Not every spec has really great AoE.
Yeah,
So not all of us can be warlocks.
The problem with sub AoE is that it doesn't synergize. Sub has a single target toolkit that doesn't fit into its AoE toolkit. So if you look at combat's AoE combat single target toolkit goes directly to its AoE toolkit. Assassination can use rupture multi-dotting on multi-target for sustained, or you can do envenom into spam Phantom Knives for nice burst. Subtlety is okay. Phantom Knives is one target. You can't do anything with that.
Okay.
Ew, yuck. That doesn't sound like it works. Very yuck. Yeah. Okay. So, let's see. Yeah, we want to keep the questions
Here we go.
rogues and stuff. So
For rogue gearing, should one seek out daggers over other weapons regardless of spec? If not, what weapons are best for that spec? I know Dalton cares greatly about this answer.
he does. He loves weapons.
Yes, he does.
You want those 2.6s for combat. There's just really no room for debate, for the main hand at least. They've made it better to where you can use a dagger in your offhand as combat. It's just slightly less optimal. You can also use a 2.6 in your offhand for subtlety. You still want the dagger in the main hand though for backstab. Assassination though, double dagger. Ideally combat double 2.6, and ideally for sub double dagger.
But from a raid gearing perspective, I mean, in a vacuum, it sounds like you want all of the things. But from a raid gearing perspective, is it more effective to give daggers to rogues first and other weapons to, say, enhancement shaman and monks first, or does it make a difference?
Well, we're the only ones that use the daggers anyway.
Okay,
so
yeah, you guys are the
default to us. But in like my instance, where the 2.6s would drop in our raid, and despite me being higher on DKP, at the time, combat was technically an off-spec. So those weapons got defaulted to our monks, and to an enhancement shaman if we would have had it. So, I don't know.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, do you find yourself
sorry.
picking up daggers first most of the time?
I would, for maximum loot distribution, I would say give daggers to rogues first and let the other classes have their weapons first. That way, those daggers have a home, you know? You gotta use them, otherwise it's DE loot. So at least I wouldn't argue against something like that, but I would love combat weapons, so.
Yeah. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Fiery.
I really don't.
I really wish they would add some kind of normalization to daggers with combat, like they had with Fangs of the Father. I thought we were going towards that direction with that perk of the daggers, but they took it away.
Yeah.
So.
What do you mean by normalization? Explain that.
They made Fangs of the Father. They made the dagger. They made Sinister Strike and Revealing Strike do more damage with the daggers, and they do 45% more damage when you had the daggers equipped. So it made them it covered for the lower top end damage and lower top end, yeah.
So the end result was that you could use those daggers with any of the specs without having to take them off. Was that the point?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that would be really nice, considering you guys are the dagger using spec.
Execution says make daggers useful for monks. They don't even use their damn weapons anyway. Yeah. Well, they're just on their back. They're just stat sticks.
I mean, the point is that it seems like just a really awkward situation where rogues want a wide variety of weapons, but at the same time, you are the only class that makes use of one kind of weapon.
Yeah.
And it seems like the ideal solution would be either to make all of the rogue specs work with daggers, or to make all of the other specs that use one-handed agility weapons care about daggers. And, I mean, instead of having this strange half-and-half situation that there is now.
I agree. It's very strange. We couldn't always use axes, and then they gave us axes around Ice Crown.
Damn you!
That was really weird. But I liked it, but it's very, very strange to not give daggers to somebody else.
Yeah.
I have like 8 daggers sitting in my bag because we just default them all to me when we don't have anyone to take them. So I have like 8 non-Warforged daggers, and I still have no Warforged daggers. I'm mad about this.
Ugh. Yeah. I definitely have to do a little more tweaking to the weapon priority list, like who can use what weapons, because there's a lot out there that issue right there. I mean, why can't I use swords if rogues can use axes? What what sneaky class is going to be coming out of alley with 2 huge axes in their hands? What the heck?
Yeah,
what is this?
I mean, it's the same problem that you run into whenever you have 2 different DPS specs on the same class that use different weapons, and
That's
you
the
run into
problem,
it sometimes with DKs who want do they want one-handers versus two-handers, and you run into it with warriors as well, whether they're using single-minded fury or whether they're doing whatever else. I remember there was a tier where I don't remember what warrior spec it was, but where they wanted 2 two-handers, and that was like our raid needed like 7 our main tank is a DK as well, so our raid needed something like 7 two-handed strength weapons to gear out the entire melee. We had 2 DPS warriors, me, Magdalena, our DK tank, and I think we had another ret at that time, and we just needed a ridiculous number of two-handed strength weapons, and it was only because that was what the top warrior spec was at that time. And it just seems really awkward. And then the warriors want the one-handed weapons, so I don't really care about them. And it just depends on the tier.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see if they do any weapon fixes in the future here and figure out where they want weapons to go, because there is a little bit of weird swing with who can use what and why, and you know, like the whole the Shadow Priest mace versus mage and warlock no mace, like why but only swords and daggers and wands, but then priests can use maces and paladins can use them too, but then without there's a lot of weird, interesting, like, why can't we just use that kind of issues, which we'll see if they fix them all. You answered that question in chat, Fiery, so anything else crazy? We're about to get out of here in a little bit. Nothing else came in. Well, we had one Shilagzu from everywhere, apparently. Just wanted to know, how long have you guys played Rogue, and what keeps it interesting for you? Dalton loves Rogue, so we'll go with him first. How long have you played in?
2006-ish.
Okay.
I fell in love with Rogue, I would say somewhere around Westfall. What keeps it fresh for me is just familiarity. I wouldn't even call it fresh. I just don't like change. So,
okay.
To keep it fresh, I play my alts. I enjoy a hunter. I enjoy my rep paladin. That's really it.
But still, that's 7 years though, Rogue. Right? Yeah. Well, what about you, Fiery? We know you're a Wrath baby, but that's okay. So that's still 4 years though. 3.5, just about.
Almost. I think it's almost 5 years now at this point. But and I've been playing Rogue the whole time. I don't know. I like Rogues, even though they're kind of boring right now. But I suspect any class I switch to would be kind of boring. So, and yeah, I enjoy my Rogue. It's what I've played, and also I have like 20k achievement points that I'd rather not have to earn again.
Yeah, that is something that kept me playing the class too.
That helps a lot.
I suppose that helps. Yeah.
All the gear sets, all the sentimental value in it is what keeps me playing it.
Apparently Mags was banned. I don't know.
I didn't ban him. Well, I'm the only person looking at chat from the show right now. So
well, no, I'm
sorry,
sitting here
Mags.
staring at it, but I think he got timed out because of a link. But I don't. It doesn't say. It's not saying he is. So I don't know what happened. Again, if you guys have questions during these after shows, you can always hit us up on Twitter, or you can use the link down below to ask a boss. It's a little forum on our website. But I think that's just about it.
Yep.
That's just about it for us over here. I'm going to change the music track up, and yeah, about that time. So again, thank you again, Mr. FieryDemise over on Twitter, part of the ShadowCraft team. Thank you for being on the show, sir. It was awesome.
Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun.
And Dalton from Something Wicked. He's over on Twitter at DaltonSW. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. And then Anafil over here on Twitter as well.
Always on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, because if/when I stream, I will put it on Twitter. I'm much more likely to advertise it there than anywhere else. So go follow me.
Yep. And that's where all of my stuff is too. Oh, I thought it turned on. Terrible. I'm over on Twitch at BayTLM. That's where you'll find all of my stuff. And again, MoltenCoins are for watching my stream, Anna's stream, and of course the show. You make the most watching the show. But we feel that if you want to hang out with us outside of the show as well, you might as well, give people those. We might do different giveaways on our personal streams for those that watch us a lot, but then giveaways will most likely be on our main show itself during the after show. But again, Blood DKs next week. We're going to have Reniot and Magdalena on the show. the two different sides of things. Matt probably might talk a little more about the soloing aspects and being a DPS blood, and then running out, we'll talk all about blood DK tanking, which has been an interesting road we've had this expansion. So we'll talk to them about that next week at 1 p.m. PST, 4 EST, 10 CET. We're here at FinalBossTV. Thank you guys very much for watching. Everyone behind the crew, all loves you guys very much. Get them MoltenCoins. We will see you next week. For Blood DKs, have a great one. Have a good time at work tomorrow. Have a good reset. Trust in the coin. And we'll see you next week, guys. All right, bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.